In 2015, a Rhode Island man called Edward Canalia got into a fight with his wife. The next day, his wife went to the police and told them that her husband was mentally unstable and suggested he might kill himself. So several police officers did what they're trained to do, and they came to the house. And they took Edward Canalia to the hospital. At the hospital, he was evaluated. After that evaluation, doctors determined that he did not need to be admitted to the hospital and that he was not a danger to himself or others. End of story, but not really. Because while Edward Canalia was in the hospital, the police decided to check what was inside his home. They didn't have a warrant. They knew that no mental health professional had made any conclusions about his psychological state. But they went ahead and rooted through his possessions anyway, and that's when they found 2 firearms. So no one says that they were illegally owned, but the police took them anyway. Again, they had no warrant. The suspect wasn't there. They just took the guns. And even after doctors said their determination was Edward Canalia is not a threat to himself or others, the police kept those guns. They just stole them. Now, you didn't think that could happen in America, and of course it's not supposed to. The Constitution prohibits that. The police can't just show up at your house and take things. So this case is now before the Supreme Court, as it should be. But here's the remarkable thing. The Biden administration is backing the police officers who stole Edward Canalia's guns with no warrant. In fact, the Biden administration is asking the Supreme Court to approve of this and make it a precedent. They're asking for permission to search any home they want without a warrant and take what they want. Any guns that Joe Biden's police find will be confiscated in the name of public safety. Think about that. It's almost beyond belief. This should be on the front page of every paper in the country. The ACLU should be fighting it. None of that's happening. According to Joe Biden, though, firearms are just that dangerous. And most dangerous of all, Joe Biden has told us, including this week, are something called assault weapons. Assault weapons are such a threat, Joe Biden says, he's not going to wait for the Supreme Court. He wants Congress, which his party controls, to pass a total ban on assault weapons. Well, if that sounds familiar, it's because we did it before for 10 years. And it didn't work. It didn't work for a bunch of different reasons. First, because no one can define what an assault weapon is. Second, because not that many people are killed by assault weapons. But Joe Biden doesn't care. If you go to Biden's website, you will learn that assault weapons are responsible for, quote, our gun violence epidemic. They're weapons of war, and if you can get them off the street, this country will be a much safer place. Well, that's a total crock. And not only is it a lie, it's an appalling lie, contradicted completely by actual evidence. And here's the evidence. The most recent data from the FBI on this subject, come from 2019, was just released. And those numbers show that a total of 364 homicides in the entire country were committed in 2019 with a rifle, assault weapon or not, all rifles. To give you some context, that same year, 600 people were killed by what the FBI calls personal weapons, fists, feet, and hands. Meanwhile, knives and other cutting tools were used in a total of 1,476 homicides. Oh, so rifles of all kinds, including assault rifles, 370 something. Knives, 1,400. In other words, using the argument that Joe Biden is now making before the Supreme Court, police ought to be allowed to come into your house and seize your cutlery without a warrant. Cutlery control could save many times as many lives as a ban on AR-15s. So why aren't they making that argument? If you really wanted to save lives, you'd ban the things that cause the most deaths, wouldn't you? You would if you cared about public safety. If you cared about public safety, you'd also enforce the gun laws already on the books in, say, Chicago, Washington, Minneapolis, where they're not enforcing the gun laws. This has nothing to do with public safety. It's an attempt to punish the people who didn't vote for Joe Biden in November. A lot of these problematic voters have the guns the Biden administration is describing as assault weapons. And they know that they can humiliate Edward Canalia, just walk in and steal his guns. They can do it to you too. By the way, whatever you do, don't lie on a federal background check. Joe Biden would like every gun transaction, including gifts to your children, to require a federal background check. And if you lie on one of those forms, you go to prison for 5 years. Done. You're done. You go to prison for 5 years. Unless you're Hunter Biden, in which case the Secret Service shows up and tries to cover for you by confiscating the evidence from the gun store. That's what they tried to do in Delaware. If you're Hunter Biden, you're fine. If you're you, you're a felon. That'll teach you to vote the right way. Well, on Monday, we've got a new show coming up. It's called Tucker Carlson Today. It's not a very original title, but there you go. You can watch it anywhere. You can watch it home if you want, all kinds of different devices.